All right, guys, so we are back at the workbench here. Going to be going over how to mask valve covers. We're getting the easy ones out of the way early on. This is all basically prep stuff for sandblasting. Assuming most of you guys are sandblasting your parts. One of the questions I get asked a lot is how to deal with baffles and stuff in valve covers. These right here would be baffles. I understand this is an absolutely disgusting valve cover. I'm using this one for a reason. This is the baffle system that's inside a valve cover. It's usually designed to keep oil away from the PCV system. Just so when you vent out, you're not venting just like straight oil. That's all the baffling really does. It also keeps oil down usually onto a rocker assembly or similar, as opposed to shooting up to the top of the valve cover. Now you're gonna have lots of different types of valve covers. I have, I think 8 different covers here right now, just to try to kind of show the differences. This is an old school BMW one. This is one that I was just practicing a color on. That's why it's not masked very well, obviously, in here. This one just has bolts to hold the baffles in. And you'll find that lots of companies actually do this. I guess I was gonna sit and list all the valve covers I could think of that do it, but that would be ridiculous. For these, it's as simple as just taking these bolts out and then removing the baffling system that would be sitting in here. This is a Ford or a Mazda valve cover. I think these are the same across both platforms for this particular motor. Same thing, this one just had screws holding it all in. Now, if you have the option to take these out, obviously take them out. That shouldn't really be a question. As far as if you can blast inside here, absolutely. So, as you can see, this valve cover has been blasted inside. I find it best just to blast the whole thing. Helps get rid of all the nasty oil and stuff. If you have access to a hot tank, you can go through and clean it all, and then you don't have to worry about blasting in here. I assume most of you guys are not going to have access to a hot tank. That being said, if you want to use something similar to a hot tank, there's a couple options. The first one might get you in trouble with family or wives or whatever. You can literally spray this thing down with like Simple Green on the inside and then put it in a dishwasher, just a standard dishwasher. And it's gonna do a fairly decent job of cleaning the underside. It's not gonna get in most of these areas if the baffles are still on, obviously, but it's gonna do a great job cleaning the inside. Any degreaser, I say Simple Green just because it's a safe degreaser. It works really well. It's not like a nasty chemical or anything, so putting it in a dishwasher is not a big deal. Another thing that I have seen done, I have never done this personally, but I know it works. There's turkey fryers, the deep fryers for turkey. It's like a big pot with a burner underneath. People put water and degreaser in those, or water and like Dawn dish soap, which is a great degreaser, and they basically boil valve covers in them to get all the stuff out. You drop it down into there, have it already hot, let it start bubbling and everything, pull it out, shake it around. It definitely works. I've seen this. A buddy of mine, I don't know where the video is, he posted on a forum a long time ago. I don't think it was ever on YouTube, but a buddy of mine had done it, and he had removed the valve cover or the baffles after to show how well it got inside, and it actually did an exceptional job. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to do really well. It does as well as any hot tank's going to do. All right, so with that being said, obviously you have your screw-in baffles. If you can pull those out, blast everything, get rid of all your oil and nastiness. We'll get the simple ones out of the way right now and move on to the next easiest ones. So these baffles, this is a J series Honda cover. These ones are actually really basic as well. All these are blocked off. There's a seal that goes all the way around this, and then these are riveted in place. You can drill these rivets out, which we'll get to here in just a minute. But an option on this one would be to clean this really well with one of the methods that I just mentioned, or you could brake clean and pressure wash it. This valve cover is absolutely disgusting. They're not normally this bad. But the same general concept. You want it as clean as possible. These ones, the only holes that are open are these 4 here and this little grid over here. And you can literally just put your standard, run-of-the-mill duct tape on holes like that. There are other ones where these baffles, or it's just a few holes like this. You can use silicone plugs in those as well for sandblasting. If you're going to tape them, make sure you tape it down really well and use like a good duct tape. Don't use super cheap duct tape that's going to blow off when you're in the blasting cabinet. These ones, like I said, are completely sealed with a gasket underneath this piece of metal. So you don't have to worry about anything going through the edges of this in the process. And then obviously, you know, if you're masking one side, you know, this hole right here is accessible as well. So you need to pop this little grommet out and put a silicone plug in here to make sure no sand gets by. If you blast directly on this, I mean, you're going to want a big plug and shove it in there real tight, because if you blast directly on this, technically sand could get by it. But ultimately, in your cleaning processes, you're going to get rid of any of that. Okay, so let me show you these two covers. So this is the same valve cover with the baffle in versus baffle removed. You can see on this one still has some gasket material. This valve cover is one that was powder coated by a local powder coater. I sent it to them to see if they could match a color that I have, Unicorn Pussy, which you guys would have seen in episode 65. They did not mask any of this area, do any sort of prep to stop sand from getting in this, and we ended up grinding away all these rivets. I have a video of it somewhere, but I ground away all these rivets to pop this off, and we found over 4 grams of blasting material in all these baffles. So it's obviously not something that you're going to want to find in your engine or anybody else's engine, unless you like buying people motors. So this valve cover, for whatever reason, despite not being masked on the backside, was completely blasted. So it would have had a little bit more media than just if you were blasting just the other side of the valve cover. But with that being said, the best way to deal with these, if you're going to grind these off or drill them out, you have 2 different options. It's just to drill a hole, you know, grind these all off and drill a hole through these, and you can re-tap them. You can buy just a generic tap and die set, or you can go find the right size screw that you're going to want to use and the right size tap and just buy those. Unless you're going to buy a really expensive tap and die set, the cheaper tap and die sets are pretty crappy taps. So it'd be better to spend a little bit more and get a nice tap that you're not going to have to worry about replacing. Once you find a screw size that works for you, it's going to work on pretty much every baffle setup. You might have to change the type of head that's on it, just because this one requires, you know, this is a much bigger hole than some of the other ones that have just, you know, like a small little bolt that goes through like this. Most of the ones that I get are either 4 or 5 or 6 millimeter threads. You can get standard if you want. I put metric in pretty much everything just because that's the world we live in now. So when I said that this valve cover hadn't been masked properly, the way that could have been approached is the exact same as we showed on the other valve cover. You put some tape over this, you can tape these few holes, and then it could have been as simple as just, you know, plugging these other holes. Obviously you're not going to have a plug that fits this, but the same general concept. And then you flip it over and you're going to want to make sure that you'd be plugging that hole as well. So that covers kind of the 2 basics. And you might have a customer who doesn't want this removed, but has like some trickier openings to work with that you can't just tape up. So we'll get to those. So this is a trick that I have literally, I think, shown 2 people ever. Not that it's like a, you know, like a crazy industry secret or something. But I'm going to show you guys, because I've had this question asked a bunch. You have this opening right here, which goes in, and then you have this opening. Let me make sure that's on camera. Yeah, over here. That you can see is like a very strange opening. You're not going to be able to tape this very effectively. You can tape it. If you spend a lot of time with good duct tape, you could tape it and make it work, but it's not going to be perfect. This opening just has like a flat side over here, so you could try to tape it, but I will show you the way that I approach this. And the weird part is you end up making a trip to a local craft store to accommodate this. The first thing you're going to want to do is grab some foil. you're just going to want a big enough piece to kind of fit down into this opening a bit, and you're going to want to press it in. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want the edges to still be sticking up once you do that. So just like this, you can see, let's see if I can turn this so you guys can see it. You can see the edges are all still sticking up. The only reason that I'm saying you don't have to do the foil, but when you see what we're doing here, you'll understand that the foil makes it a little easier for you. Craft store. I actually went to Walmart to get this. I buy it, normally speaking, I buy a much bigger box of this. It's a 5-pound brick. This is 2 pounds from a local pottery place. But all this is non-hardening modeling clay. I went to Walmart specifically to get this. I'll try to put a link in the description, just because I know most of you guys have access to a Walmart, so you can go grab it from this. It doesn't matter, you know, color, none of that stuff's gonna matter. This is white. It doesn't stay white long, obviously, as soon as you touch it with dirty hands. But it comes in two. This is a 1-pound brick. So it came with 2 of these, and I think it was $4 maybe. They have a slightly bigger one that I think is $7. It's like twice or 3 times the size. So what you're gonna end up doing is you're gonna form it roughly to the size of the opening that you're working with, whatever that might be. So in this case, we're gonna do this one. And all you do is shove it down in and push this out to all the edges of your baffle here. So I know right here I have that line that comes up, and then we're still staying on the foil as best we can. It doesn't, you know, staying on the foil doesn't matter. You're trying to keep it off like a dirty valve cover in theory, but this stuff gets gross instantly. The kind I buy is actually like a red color, and it seems to stay fairly, it's like a brick red. But what you've done here now is effectively created a seal so that nothing can get into that. And I mean, you'll have to work it down. I'm having a hard time, obviously, with my disabled hand here. So once you work that all down in, you literally have sealed that area off, and it's not any different for down here. Exact same process, even though it's a much more complicated shape. The only thing that makes it a little harder is the foil install. Kind of sucks. So same concept. You grab a brick or a chunk of this off your brick. Stuff's really hard to tear compared to the stuff I use. And you can use this stuff numerous times. You're only gonna be using it for blasting. Don't put this stuff through the oven or anything wild like that. This is just to aid you for blasting. But the same concept, you know, start out with a piece, you know, probably bigger than you think you need. That's one of the things I realized. I would always grab pieces and try to work it into the shape I want. It's not gonna matter that it's too big and bulky, because all you're doing is blocking off this area. So, and I've tested this. I wish I was in a position to drill these out. I can't do it because of my hand. I wish that I could show you guys how effective this actually is. This works really well. All you gotta do is pay a little bit of attention and make sure that you're working everything down into here. And this stuff is pretty sticky, so it's gonna stick to everything that you push it down onto, including the foil. It's not great, but it works. So don't worry about it falling off in the blasting process. You're not gonna want to blast the underside with this here, because you'll embed sand into this and it will start to suck really fast. This is literally just to mask this off for blasting. So this is assuming you have a clean valve cover, you've cleaned inside the baffles as well as you can, and you're not allowed, you know, your customer doesn't want you to remove the baffles, or you're not in a position to, you know, which hopefully you're at least telling your customer about that. So that being said, you would then have to go through, mask, you know, put a plug in here. In this case, I would probably pull this out and just put another threaded piece in there to block that off. And then these 2 pieces right here, I would end up blocking those off with plugs as well for blasting. One of the things, oftentimes there's baffles that kind of, the oil cap has access to like a baffled area, so make sure that on your valve cover that is not the case, and if it is, just make sure you put a plug into there. I actually have a bunch of old oil caps that I thread in. Hondas and Nissans, I'll use the same ones, and then Mitsubishi uses random ones, so you end up with a collection if you go that route. But you can use those to plug the holes as well for the blasting process, if they're the ones that go into a baffled area, which is pretty rare. It's not on most valve covers. I think, let's see if there's one more valve cover here that has a little different style. Oh yeah, the K-Series ones. You know, I've gone through, what, 2 different Honda ones, a Mazda one, or a Ford one rather. I guess they're almost all Honda, but it's the same process no matter what. SRT4 valve cover is the exact same way. So this one has this opening, let's see, right here. And this one, you're just gonna take clay and you can roll it up a little bit. Just, I'm sure like you used to do in, I don't know, whatever grade that we all played with clay in art class or whatever. And you can just form it around this the exact same way. You don't necessarily have to foil it, just because foiling this way is going to be a pain. But just like that, make sure it's smoothed out and pressed real even against the whole edge of your valve cover here. And you know, every valve cover is going to be different, so you're going to have to look and see where there's openings. On the K series, there's 2 openings right here as well, so you're going to have to build one here to accomplish the exact same goal. Now a lot of people think, you know, oh, that's a lot of effort just for masking. It's like, well, like I said before, it's much better than having to buy somebody a motor or buy yourself a new motor because you decided to be a little bit lazy and not mask it off, and now you have media blasting material in somebody's engine. And then this is another good example of a valve cover. I think this is an old Cobalt valve cover, if I remember correctly. This one has this slit, can be covered the exact same way. You can also just tape this one. You run your tape out long and just press it down on each side of here. But then it has these ones, which are a pain in the ass to mask. This is another area where the clay comes in, super useful. And then this one also has a couple tiny little holes. You're gonna have to look, like I said, every valve cover is different. They all have, you know, this one has a couple tiny little holes that you could either put silicone plugs in or tape off. All right, guys, well, this is, I'm sure at least a 10-minute video still, but this is a quick little video. I've had lots of people asking about baffles. If you need more information about, you know, drilling out and, you know, tapping to put new stuff in, let me know. I can make a whole separate video showing the whole tapping process to be able to put bolts in. I'll put the link for this in the description, but like I said before, it's just any generic non-hardening model clay. And then when you're done with this, make sure you wrap it up. You want to put it in a Ziploc bag or something. It doesn't ever actually get hard, but it will get a little dried out and harder to use if you leave it exposed to air. So yeah, that should be it for this video. Hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment, or if you got any questions, feel free to post those down below. If you're not a member of the channel yet, there's a link down below for to join and support the channel. I'm going to change it also. It's all $4.99 a month, but members get a bunch of random extras. I'm actually working this weekend to come up with all the new extras that members are going to be getting, so look forward to that. Thanks again, guys.